It started with a text. My father didn't do phone calls unless it was about stock tips or yelling at Comcast. So when the gray bubble appeared on a quiet Tuesday evening, I knew before opening it that it wouldn't be a question. It would be a command. We expect you at Ryan's wedding. No excuses. That was it. No. How's school? No. Are you free that weekend? Not even a please. Just the royal decree, straight from the throne. I stared at it for a moment, thumb hovering over the keyboard, then locked my phone without responding. I was in the middle of a project deadline, freelance work for a client who paid better than most internships, and I didn't have time for this kind of mental taxation. But 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. If you're not there, don't expect us to keep funding your education. There it was. The real message. My father didn't see me as a person. I was an investment. A long-term bet that, if molded correctly, could become something close to tolerable. Or useful. Or more realistically, someone he could occasionally brag about, as long as I didn't outshine Ryan. Ryan was the golden child. Football captain, business degree, country club smile. The kind of guy who posted rise and grind memes and thought empathy was something HR invented. My parents adored him. Not in the normal way, not birthday cake love. Worship. Pride of the lineage worship. I, on the other hand, was the difficult one. Quiet. Bookish. Too sarcastic. Too sensitive. Too me. They paid part of my tuition not out of generosity, but out of guilt. I'd won a partial scholarship, worked 2 campus jobs, and still struggled to cover everything. They agreed to help with the remainder, with conditions. Holiday visits. Family appearances. And now, attendance at a wedding I wanted no part of. I didn't hate Ryan. I just didn't admire him. He never treated me with more than lukewarm tolerance, occasionally dipping into open mockery when it suited him. In high school, he once introduced me at a party as my brother who does whatever it is he does. Something with books. It wasn't funny, but people laughed. That was Ryan's superpower, making people laugh at others while making them feel like they were laughing with him. My father was worse. He had a way of weaponizing pride that felt like control. If I got an A, he'd ask why it wasn't an A+. If I got a scholarship, he'd say, "Glad you're finally pulling your weight." So when he said, "Be at the wedding or lose your funding," what he really meant was, "Perform for us, or we'll remind you who holds the leash." I didn't respond that night. Or the next. But I felt the news tighten with each passing hour. Mom called Thursday. "Sweetie, please don't make this a big deal. You know how important this is to your father. And Ryan's really looking forward to seeing you." That was a lie. Ryan wasn't looking forward to anything except the open bar and the bridal suite. I was a background extra in his wedding slideshow. The blood relative no one remembered was in the cast. Still, I said, "I'll think about it." But I wasn't thinking about if I'd go. I was thinking about how I'd go. And what I'd bring with me. Not a gift. Not a speech. Not even a suit. I was going to bring the truth. Because what my family didn't know, what none of them ever bothered to ask, was that while they were busy painting Ryan as the success story, I'd been quietly building something of my own. Friday morning, I got the calendar invite. Subject line: rehearsal dinner, Ryan and Madison. Location: an overpriced vineyard 2 counties over. Dress code: semi-formal, elevated elegance. Note from Mom: "Can't wait to see you, sweetheart. Your father says please don't cause any scenes this time, red heart." That last line stuck in my throat. This time? She was referring to Thanksgiving. When Ryan cracked some joke about me being the family tax deduction that never panned out. And I didn't laugh. Apparently, choosing silence over forced gratitude was causing a scene. I did an RSVP. By Saturday, my phone rang. The name on the screen: Dad. No greeting. No small talk. Just, "You got the invite?" I did. "Then you'll be there." I didn't answer. Don't play dumb, he snapped. This isn't a request. It's your brother's day, and you're not going to ruin it with one of your moods. You'll show up, you'll smile, you'll take the damn pictures. Still, I said nothing. He sighed, exasperated. Then he dropped the bomb like he was reading off a weather forecast. If you embarrass us, even once, I pull the tuition. You understand me? There it was. The line they'd been dancing around for years, finally spoken with surgical precision. Not love. Not support. Just leverage. I didn't flinch. I didn't yell. I just said, understood. Then I hung up. I opened my laptop and logged into my student account. The tuition for next semester was already marked as paid. Because 2 weeks ago, without telling anyone, I'd covered it myself. Quietly. Completely. With cash I'd earned freelancing after hours while carrying a full course load. My parents hadn't noticed. They never asked how I was managing. They assumed I was still under their thumb, dangling on their strings, desperate for their next deposit. But what they didn't know was that while they were busy comparing me to Ryan, I was building something they'd never see coming. I started freelance coding my sophomore year. At first, it was error fixes and template tweaks on outdated WordPress blogs. Small-time stuff. But I treated every job like a portfolio piece. Clients talked. One project led to another. Then another. By junior year, I had recurring contracts with 2 SaaS platforms and a design agency that needed automation support. I built back-end systems, analytics dashboards, even a Chrome extension that quietly raked in affiliate revenue. One client paid me $7,500 to integrate their payment system with an invoicing API. When the wire cleared, I stared at the balance for 5 straight minutes. I wasn't rich. But I wasn't dependent anymore. That weekend, while my family prepped signature cocktails and floral centerpieces, I created a spreadsheet. Tab 1, Guest List, cross-referenced with known LinkedIn profiles. Tab 2, Talking Points, just in case anyone asked what I'd been up to. Tab 3, a bulletproof version of the sentence I was going to say when the time came. Not a speech. Not revenge. Just a sentence. A truth wrapped in calm, timed like a match strike. Because if they were going to dangle my education like bait, they needed to know the trap was already empty. I didn't need their money. I didn't need their permission. And I sure as hell didn't need to keep quiet anymore. You know what nobody in my family ever asked? What do you actually do? Not seriously. Not like they cared. Not even out of lazy politeness. They just assumed that I was broke. That I was figuring things out. That I was sitting around waiting for someone else to build a future for me. Ryan was the business guy. The go-getter. The one with the firm handshake and the perfectly styled hair. He was the future CEO. The success story in progress. And me? I was the quiet one. The one who still messed with computers or something. While Ryan took selfies and rented Limos for his Instagram story, I was in the corner of a 24-hour cafe eating stale muffins and coding until 3 a.m. It started with a class project. Group assignment. Everyone bailed. I built the entire site, design, back-end, login system, cart. The professor gave me an A+ and asked afterward, "You ever done contract work?" I hadn't. Yet. She passed my name to a friend, a guy running a local bike shop whose website hadn't worked properly since 2012. He paid me $500 for 2 weeks of work. The site didn't win awards, but it worked. And when the PayPal notification hit my inbox, I knew I was never going back to campus jobs again. From there, it rolled. I rebuilt an artist's online portfolio. Then a wedding DJ's schedule tool. Then a brewery's keg return system. I made mistakes. Wrote messy code. Undercharged. Over-delivered. Learned the hard way. But every job made me sharper. Faster. I built my own site with one sentence on the homepage. Clean code. Quietly delivered. No ego. No fluff. Just service. By junior year, I had 3 retainer clients and 2 regular project clients. I charged by scope, not hour. I billed with confidence. I even learned to walk away when someone asked for just a quick favor. Once, a crypto platform tried to stiff me on a contract. I triggered a kill switch in the code I'd written, shutting down the system until they paid in full. They paid the next morning, plus late fees. My favorite moment? A wellness coach asked me to build her a funnel system for her ebook. When she saw the first demo, she cried and sent me a $1,000 tip. That same week, my mom called to ask if I'd considered dropping out to find something more stable. I didn't bother replying. By the time senior year rolled around, I was bringing in $6,500 a month after taxes. I had 2 checking accounts, an IRA, a savings buffer, and I'd already paid for next semester in full, while my dad still thought I needed him to write a check. They never noticed. They never asked why I stopped requesting grocery money, or how I replaced my phone, or why I always paid my rent 2 weeks early. Because in their world, I was a footnote, an afterthought. The one who reads a lot. The one still in school. The one who doesn't say much. But I'd been saying a lot. They just weren't listening. And that's fine. Because I wasn't building my life for their applause. I was building it so one day, when they least expected it, I could look them in the eye and tell them something they never saw coming. That I didn't need them. That I'd never needed them. And that when they finally saw me clearly, it wouldn't be because I screamed. It would be because I whispered the truth into a microphone, and let the room do the rest. My flight landed at 10:47 a.m. Friday morning. My dad picked me up in his leased Lexus, Bluetooth playing a podcast called Success Daily at Volume 8. He didn't ask how the flight was. He didn't ask how I was. Just launched right into the itinerary like I was an unpaid intern. You'll be in the guest room. You're sitting second row at the ceremony. No speeches. Just smile for the pictures. I don't want any trouble. I stared out the window. Trouble? He gave a tight laugh. You know how you can be. Just be normal. For once. Be normal. Right. The rehearsal dinner was that night. Held in a country club my parents didn't actually belong to, but Ryan's fiancée's family did, and that was enough for them to act like royalty. As soon as I walked in, my mom gave me a tight-lipped smile and air kiss. Oh, sweetheart. Glad you're here. Don't forget to tuck your shirt in before the photos. Ryan swaggered over a few minutes later, glass of whiskey in hand, tie loosened like he was trying out for a cologne ad. Look who made it, he said, clapping me on the back. You're not still doing that coding thing, are you? Still? I opened my mouth, but he kept going. You ever think about getting a real job? I know a guy at my firm who might let you shadow. If you clean up the hair a little. Laughter. Mostly his. I smiled. Appreciate it. He blinked, thrown by the calm. Then walked off like he'd just done me a favor. The night blurred from there. Toasts. Clinking glasses. Someone gave Ryan a personalized cigar box. Someone else told a story about him scoring the winning touchdown in high school. The table roared. I sipped water and nodded. At one point, one of Madison's uncles leaned toward me. So what do you do exactly? I shrugged. I solve expensive problems for cheap coders. He laughed, not sure if it was a joke. Well, if you ever want a real challenge, Ryan says his team's got some complicated spreadsheets you could help with. I smiled again. I'll think about it. Dinner was a blur of overpriced lamb and forced small talk. Mom leaned in halfway through dessert and said, You've really matured, you know that? I told your father, I think you're finally learning your place. My place. I excused myself and walked outside. The air was cold and dry. The kind of night that makes silence feel like music. I checked my phone. My Stripe payout had cleared, 3 new invoices paid in full. One client had tipped me $250 for delivering a project early. Another wanted to expand their retainer. My fingers hovered over my notes app. I added a single bullet. Let them talk. Let them laugh. They don't know this is the last time they'll ever underestimate you. I walked back in. Ryan was still holding court. Dad was still controlling the room like he owned it. But I wasn't angry anymore. Because tomorrow, they'd hand me a microphone. And I wasn't going to raise my voice. I was just going to speak. And when I did, they'd hear me for the first time in their lives. The morning of the wedding was a blur of hair dryers, shoe polish, and anxiety disguised as politeness. The house buzzed with motion. Madison's family moved like they were planning a state dinner. Ryan barked into his phone, double-checking something with the DJ. My mom insisted I change ties, said mine looked too freelance. Whatever that meant. By noon, we were at the venue. Rows of white chairs. A pergola wrapped in gauze and flowers. A violinist tuning up in the distance. I was ushered to my designated seat, second row far left. The edge of visibility, present but not prominent. Just the way they preferred me. I kept my head down. Smiled at guests. Said thank you when someone complimented my blazer. Then came cocktail hour. Small talk was currency. I was standing by the Rose Bar when a woman I didn't recognize leaned toward me. You're Ryan's brother, right? Guilty. She smiled. I'm Ellie. One of Madison's cousins. We didn't get to talk at the rehearsal dinner. Not much to talk about, I said lightly. Well, that depends, she replied. What do you do? I hesitated. Then gave her the clean version. I'm a freelance developer. Mostly back-end architecture. I do a lot of workflow optimization, automation, stuff like that. Her eyebrows lifted. Seriously? That's awesome. We've been looking for someone to rebuild our grant application portal. You have a card? I pulled one from my pocket, just a minimalist design, name, email, site. She scanned it. Clean code. Quietly delivered. I love that. Thanks. Then she leaned in. Don't tell Ryan, but you're already more interesting than half the people he invited. She walked off. I smiled. But what I didn't know was that someone had been standing behind her, one of Madison's uncles. And he'd overheard everything. He tapped my shoulder a few minutes later. You built grant systems? Among other things. You do government contracts? Occasionally. Son, he said, grinning. I work for the city. We've been trying to replace our database guy for a year. You have a minute? We talked. Just 10 minutes. But in that time, 2 more people floated over. One worked in event management. The other ran a private school in need of system integration. And just like that, the whispers started. Not rumors. Not gossip. Curiosity. The good kind. By the time the reception began, 3 people had asked me for my website. One asked if I taught courses. Another said her startup could really use someone with your vibe. Ryan still hadn't noticed. He was too busy getting photos taken by the vintage Rolls-Royce. Dad hadn't noticed either. He was reciting Ryan's resume to the father of the bride like he was reading scripture. But others noticed. And the way they looked at me had shifted. Not with pity. With interest. With respect. The wedding planner passed by and said, You're the developer? Ellie's cousin won't stop talking about you. She said you explained something about servers that actually made sense. I didn't correct her. I didn't elaborate. I just smiled. Because the best part wasn't the attention. It was the fact that I didn't chase it. It came to me. And as I sat at the reception, napkin folded, plate untouched, I saw Ryan give a toast. He thanked his parents. His in-laws. His rock-solid support system. And when he raised his glass, he looked right past me. Didn't matter. Because by that point, 5 people in the room knew the truth. And the truth has gravity. You don't have to shout it. You just have to let it breathe. The reception rolled on like a perfectly planned machine. Ryan beamed. Madison glowed. Parents posed. Every moment choreographed to preserve the myth. Golden child marries golden bride under golden chandeliers. Until the mic came around. It wasn't planned. The best man had just finished his speech, mostly beer-soaked college stories, and the MC, with a little too much wine in his system, grinned and said, "Anyone else want to say a few words for the lovely couple?" Before I could disappear behind a bread basket, my dad's voice cut through the room. "Nate! Say something!" Every eye turned to me. He smiled like he was throwing me a bone. Or maybe setting a trap. I stood. Took the mic. Not out of anger. Not out of spite. Out of peace. The kind you feel when you're not afraid anymore. "Hi," I said. "I'm Nate. Ryan's younger brother." Polite smiles. A few guests murmured, "Oh, he looks just like him." I continued, "I don't have a funny story or an old football memory. But I do have one thing, perspective." Laughter. Nervous, polite. I've been the quiet one in this family for a long time. Not because I didn't have anything to say. Just because I learned early that some people prefer the sound of their own story. A few heads turned. But something changed recently. I started doing things that didn't need applause. I stopped waiting for permission to be proud of myself. I paused. My brother works in finance. My parents love to talk about that. And that's great. Ryan was smiling. Tight. Controlled. What they don't know is that for the past 2 years, I've been running my own software consultancy. I build custom automation systems for mid-sized businesses, educators, and city clients. I've completed over 60 projects, all independently. The room shifted. And last month, I paid off my tuition in full. Out of pocket. No loans. No parental funding. No one even noticed, because no one ever asked. Dead quiet. Except for my father clearing his throat. I looked at him. I'm not saying this to make anyone uncomfortable. I'm saying it because for years, I believed I wasn't enough. That I was the weak one. The dependent one. The disappointment. I smiled. I'm not. I make more than Ryan. It wasn't loud. I didn't shout it. But it rang like a bell. Ryan's jaw clenched. Madison stiffened. A couple at the next table leaned forward. Someone near the back let out a quiet, "Damn. I don't need validation. I don't need applause. I just needed the people who raised me to understand I was doing fine, even when they weren't watching." I handed the mic back to the MC and sat down. No mic drop. No dramatic exit. Just truth, calmly delivered, finally heard. Ryan turned toward me, red-faced. "What the hell was that?" I looked at him. "Perspective." He stood up. "You think this is funny? You're ruining our wedding." I think," I said, "you were just surprised I showed up as something more than a background character." He stepped forward. My dad grabbed his arm. My mom hissed something at him under her breath. "And me?" I sipped my water. Because for once, I didn't owe anyone anything. Not an explanation. Not a smile. Not a single line of code. The silence after I sat down was thicker than the air before a thunderstorm. Not just quiet, tense. Uncomfortable. Electric. A few guests clapped. A few didn't know if they were allowed to. Others just stared, forks frozen halfway to their mouths. Ryan didn't sit. He stood there, jaw flexing, staring at me like I'd kicked his Labrador. "You make more than me?" he finally snapped, just loud enough for 2 tables to turn. I looked up. Calm. "Yes. That's bull." "Ryan," Madison hissed, tugging his arm. My mom leaned over, smiling that fake, church lady smile through clenched teeth. "What was that, Nathan? What's gotten into you?" "What's always been in me," I said softly. "You're just hearing it for the first time." Dad stood. "Let's not turn this into a sideshow. Everyone's here to celebrate." He scanned the tables like a man trying to sweep broken glass under a rug. But it was too late. The whispers had started. "He's been paying his tuition himself?" I thought Ryan was the successful one. He seemed so composed. So different. Madison's uncle passed me on the way to the bar and said, "Just so you know, I'd love to get your info before you go." That was impressive. I nodded, but I didn't smile. Because this wasn't triumph. It was truth. And truth, when finally spoken in a room built on illusion, doesn't land with applause. It lands like gravity. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and turned toward the table. "I appreciate dinner," I said. "But I think I've taken up enough space in a story that wasn't mine to begin with." Ryan opened his mouth again, but Madison stepped between us. "Let it go," she whispered. "He didn't ruin anything. He just reminded people to look deeper." My mother looked like she was about to faint. Dad gave me that look, the same one he used when I got a B in middle school math. Disappointment dressed as silence. But for once, it didn't sting. Because it didn't mean anything. They didn't have that power anymore. I walked past the sweetheart table, past the cake I wouldn't eat, past the photographer trying to figure out if he should still be taking pictures. Outside, the air was colder than I expected. Crisp. Honest. I pulled out my phone. 2 unread emails. One from a guest who wanted to book me for a school district consulting gig. The other from a recruiter who loved what you said about workflow optimization. I started typing replies. Behind me, through the tent walls, I could still hear the DJ trying to salvage the vibe. A new song started, upbeat, meaningless. It didn't matter. I'd said what needed to be said. And now? I was done performing. Done explaining. Done being their family prop. I got in my Uber, checked my calendar, and confirmed 2 client calls for Monday. Because while they were still inside trying to decide who embarrassed who, I was already back to building. I didn't go back to the house that night. I booked a hotel 10 minutes from the venue, the kind with white noise machines and blackout curtains. I ordered room service, steak, rare, and ate in silence while answering client emails like it was just another Friday. My phone buzzed. Over and over. Some text came from numbers I didn't have saved. "Dude, that was the smoothest checkmate I've ever seen. You seriously own your own firm? Respect. Quietest mic drop I've witnessed. If you ever want to speak at our tech series, hit me up." I didn't respond to most. I didn't need to. The message had already been received, loud and clear. I checked out early Sunday morning, boarded a 7 a.m. flight, and by the time my family even woke up for brunch photos and church selfies, I was halfway across the country and back in my element. Monday, 2 video calls, 1 onboarding session, and a Stripe payment notification that made me laugh. Tuesday, a referral from one of the wedding guests, a government systems project with a budget that could cover 2 years of tuition. Wednesday, silence from my family. Not a call. Not a message. Not a word. Until Thursday night. My mom posted a photo of Ryan and me as kids on Facebook, digging sandcastles on some beach in Florida. Caption: "Proud of my boy's red heart." No apology. No context. Just nostalgia dressed as reconciliation. I didn't comment. Didn't like it. Because pretending to care after you've been exposed isn't healing. It's PR. Ryan, as far as I could tell, went quiet too. His social media went private. His LinkedIn got oddly quiet. The guy who once posted daily quotes about pushing limits and being the alpha was suddenly a ghost. I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't even angry. I was just lighter. Like something heavy had finally been cut loose. Because the truth is, I didn't go to the wedding to start a fire. I went to walk out of one. For years, I let them tell my story. "You're too sensitive. You're the quiet one. You'll figure it out eventually. You're lucky we support you." They handed me a script and expected me to follow it, word for word, scene by scene, until maybe, one day, I earned applause. But I don't want applause. I want peace. And you don't get peace from performing. You get it by stopping. Stopping the explanations. The begging. The proving. The pretending. What they thought was me lashing out was actually me stepping out. Not to embarrass anyone, but to finally stop erasing myself so they could keep shining. I didn't go viral. I didn't film a moment. Didn't post a rant. Didn't quote tweet a toast. I just told the truth, once, in front of people who never thought I'd have anything to say. And when they finally saw me, really saw me, they didn't clap. They flinched. Because when you've built your story on someone else being small, it's terrifying to realize they were never small to begin with. They were just quiet. And now? I'm not quiet anymore. But I'm not loud either. I'm just free. I didn't have to make a scene. I just had to be seen. And now that I am, I'm never disappearing again.